Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the highly anticipated 2025 Ford Ranger. But more specifically, this is the Ranger Raptor, the most off-road capable and powerful version of the Ranger currently offered. This one specifically is in a color that Ford likes to call Oxford White, which I personally think it actually looks really good on this model and this trim level, really accenting all the black Ranger Raptor accents well. But while this is one of the most capable off-road midsize trucks, and probably the most powerful at over 400 horsepower, it's not perfect. So today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Ranger Raptor to help you guys at home decide if this might be the right midsize truck for you, or if you should leave it at the lot and look at the other competition. So today you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Goody Motor Ford for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below because they sell below MSRP. They ship all over the country, and with that said, let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for watching car videos on YouTube today. But if you get anything out of this video, you like my style, or you like the Ranger Raptor, please be so kind to consider liking my video. That helps the video get shared, it helps me know you want to watch more stuff like this, but I'll help you as well by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff like this too. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Ford, or the Ford Ranger, there's a few things that you should probably know. Ford started back in Detroit, Michigan in the year 1903, but it wasn't until 1983 that they put out their very first Ford Ranger, at least as its own model and not just a trim level off of the F-Series full-size pickup truck. And over the 5 generations that the Ranger has been existing, it's really gone through a big transformation. The first 3 generations from the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, they were very small. They were work trucks. They had either 2-door or 2-door extended cab configurations. And then after taking almost a decade of hiatus, the Ford Ranger came back for the 4th and now the 5th generation, looking like this, being more of a full-size midsize truck, a full 4-door with about a 5-foot bed, which this is the only configuration that you can currently have on your 5th generation Ford Ranger. This 5th generation did come out about a year ago, and the Ranger Raptor coming out soon after is actually pretty substantial. If you are interested in just a base model XL Ranger, like the one I reviewed a couple weeks ago, those start at about $33,000 before any discounts. If you want 4-wheel drive, you're going to have to pay a little bit of a price premium. But if you want the most loaded Ranger, the Ranger Raptor that this is the 4th and highest trim level of it, starting at about $56,000. You really get a lot of goodies. You get a twin-turbo 3-liter EcoBoost engine that makes 405 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. You get a front and rear locking differential. You get these 33-inch BFG KO3 tires, and you even get heated front seats and a lot of other nice features that you'll see throughout this video. And if having a safe vehicle is important to you, as it is for me because I do physical therapy as my day job, so I've worked with a lot of people who have been in car accidents and you really don't want to be one of them, you should know that the Ranger is about on par with the best of the other midsize trucks. It is only a 4-star crash test rated vehicle overall, so it's not a top safety pick, it's not a 5-star crash test rated vehicle, but to be fair, I don't think any of the other midsize trucks are a top safety pick or a 5-star overall crash test rated vehicle, because when you have a body on a frame, there's just not that much crumple zone compared to a unibody vehicle. These aren't designed to crumple. They are designed to do work, to do jumps, to do other truck-like stuff, and not necessarily protect you and your passengers the best, but it still does have a 5-star crash test rating in the front, a 3-star rollover, and overall it has a lot of standard safety features, especially on the Raptor Ranger trim level. So it has 360-degree cameras, adaptive cruise, lane keep assist, all of that type of stuff. It even has these really bright LED headlights and a lot of other safety features that you'll see throughout. But one of my favorite features is that these come with blind spot monitoring. And although this actually has really good visibility for a midsize truck, having blind spot monitoring is still one of my favorite features, as well as all the rear cross traffic alert and rear bumper sensors and all that type of stuff too. You really can't go wrong with a more safe vehicle. And this one specifically, unless you're driving without your seatbelt on, it doesn't seem to chime at you, doesn't seem to nag you with a lot of nannies and safety features like some other vehicles do. So that's pretty cool. And for being a factory-designed, wide-body, lifted version of the Ford Ranger, this thing feels really stable at highway speeds, it's easy to drive around town, and super easy to park, and actually fits pretty decently in an average-sized parking spot. This overall is about 17.5 feet long. The wheelbase is 10.7 feet, so very long, very planted on the road. It's about 6.6 feet wide, about 6.3 feet tall, so it has a very nice stance to it. But again, because it is a little bit higher, it is a little bit more lifted, that is why it has a 3-star rollover rating. And then it weighs about 5,400 pounds. The cool thing is they can tow 5,500 pounds, so you can tow a Ford Ranger Raptor behind your Ford Ranger Raptor. This one specifically has a 1,308-pound payload, so between the interior, if you had roof rails, if you had tongue weight, if you had weight in the bed, you can hold up to 1,300 pounds more than this thing is coming with right now. And then it has about 10.7 inches of ground clearance. It has a 427 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 44 feet. And then the last couple things to mention out here is the gas door is located on the driver's side, but when you lock the vehicle and you get the vehicle to honk and set the alarm, the gas door doesn't lock, so the bumps might attempt to siphon some of your 20.3 gallons of 87 or higher octane fuel. This vehicle is rated at 16 city, 18 on the highway, which might not sound like a lot, but that is a little bit better on the highway than the ZR2 Bison that I reviewed a few months ago, so that's pretty cool. And then these are the BFG KO3 tires. They're a 285, 70-17. Ford calls them a 33, but they're actually a 32.7, and thankfully they are not shaved down. They actually have 14 seconds of tread, which is awesome that this is the full legit KO3 tire. And then this one specifically has the $1,500 wheel option. That is the beadlock capable wheel. I have to say that 17-inch looks really good, and look at all that beautiful sidewall. This is the key though. You have unlock, you have lock, you have remote start, you have panic button, but honestly you can just leave that in your pocket because you do have proximity key features right here. To lock and unlock the vehicle, a key, the one that's hidden in your remote, can open that, and then you have the typical Ford keypad, which I really like. The driver's side door panel of this is pretty cool. It opens up well enough for most people. I do wish there was an 8-pillar handle to pull yourself in because this is a pretty high truck, but thankfully it does come with the running board, and that does a good job to lower the entryway by probably 7 or 8 inches. You have Ford Performance on the door sill. You have a mixed match of nicer materials, leather wrap stitching right there. You have the Ford Ranger handle, which is pretty cool. Some Alcantara up here. Memory seats, even up to 3 people. So pick 2 of your buddies or 2 of your other favorite positions and set the seats. You also have the B&O speakers, which seem to be pretty decent. No all-weather mats installed on this one yet. Rubberized pedals, you have the OBD2 port. I don't see it listed for a knee airbag, which is a knock. That might have been the difference between a 4 or 5-star crash test rating. I don't know. But then you have a few options here. Lighting stock. You have really cool textures, themes, more Alcantara around the steering wheel. You have the high beam stock, tilting and telescoping wheel. You have the leathery wrapped, really nice paddle shifted Raptor 6 o'clock handle steering wheel. And then these are your nice leather seats with more Raptor red accents and Raptor stamped in right there. But no power moonroof or anything like that up top. Sitting inside here is actually really nice. It feels like you're driving something very special, or even sitting passenger in something very special. Ford really did a good job for about, 60 grand, making this interior feel extra special. You have blind spot monitoring, huge mirrors. You can see right down the center. But even if you just look over your shoulder, you actually have pretty decent visibility. There are other trucks that have much worse visibility. And even though this is still squared off in the front, it looks aggressive. The hood slopes down enough that you can see what's in front of you a little bit better than you can on some other trucks. But when we fired right up, Built Ford Tough appears. The vehicle roars to life. I would say it sounds better when you're driving than when you're just revving the engine to the 4,500 RPM soft limiter. But you have paddle shifters. You have the race red guide to make sure that the wheel's going straight when you're bahaing down. The horn. Oh, that's actually really loud. Sounds like it came right from the F-150 Raptor. Return to sport mode. Probably my favorite option that the software knows what I want as the driver. You have the big screen. It has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It does a good job. You have physical controls for HVAC down here, as well as it pulls up the digital display menu right there, which is kind of interesting how this system works. You can see how they're intertwined right there, but the AC blows really cold. The trailer brake controls right there. You have a few plugins down here, some storage pockets. You have a backup camera and 360-degree camera, which is pretty cool. If you wanted to get into manual mode only, you can push the manual M button right there and play around with the paddle shifters. This 10-speed auto does seem to do a pretty good job. And then you have some cup holders, electronic parking brake, a few more controls for parking sensors, traction control, auto start stop. I do love that this thing actually has 4-wheel drive auto and not just 4-high. That is really cool. And then the center console even has a lifty tray. It's adequately sized. Remember, the drive shaft is probably going through here, so you don't have a ton of room. Up top, you have all of your aux switches, and they're powered. You can see that they're already hooked up, so it'll be a little bit easier to install aftermarket mods or Ford performance mods. You can even open the sliding rear window, which is pretty cool. You can see the wire, the power wire kind of going across the screen. Garage door openers right there. And, ooh, Ford cheaped out on us. On camera, that might look like an LED, but in person, it kind of looks like an incandescent type of filament. Anyways, this is a really cool place to be. Let me turn it off and I'll hop in the back. The back of the Ford Ranger is a really nice place to be. Good big window. You can see that it's tinted from the factory. You even have the same carryover nicer materials. You don't have Alcantara, but you do have, I guess that is a cheaper black accent, but you still have a nice soft touch leather wrapped wheel, the cool handle that feels very substantial, bottle and snack pocket. You even have the speaker back here, and then the running board that extends. There's also a few different ways you can hide some stuff back here. You can either lift up the seats, which I love that the red accents and Hobby Lobby stitching follow the same theme as the front, but down here you have your tire changing tools. You have some storage. There's also a strap over there that you can pull to lower the backrest down. And in that clip, you'll see that this is not huge back here, but it is bigger than the Tacoma, is bigger than a few other midsize trucks. And climbing up, I of course wish I had the B-pillar handle right there, but I don't. I do have the seat in a nice driving, comfortable position for myself at 5'11", but even with that, I actually have a couple inches in front of my knees. Very plush seat backrest, good map pocket. I really wish that there was ventilation instead of just a storage bin. I do love storage on a vehicle, but backseat occupants, pets, children, grandma, grandpa, they're going to want some vents back here, especially if they're bajaing through the desert. And then you do have a cup holder on each side, an armrest. It is pretty small. It's almost embarrassingly small. My arm barely even fits on that thing, and when it does, it blocks up at least one of the cups. But at least you have a household-style outlet. But 400 watts is not incredibly powerful like a hybrid vehicle would have, or a full EV, but otherwise I have good headroom. It's funny that I have an LED light right there, and overall this is a pretty nice place to be. The back of this midsize truck is honestly really comfortable in the Ranger Raptor trim level. And holy cow, did Ford do good with the back of the Ranger Raptor. I'll be honest guys, I love the Ranger Raptor badges. I don't necessarily love the graphics. I'd rather save a few $100s and not have those graphics on the truck. But I do love all the physical badges and the accents that this trim level has. I also love the high tucked exhaust right next to those recovery points. You have the hitch back there. And there's no button on here to drop the tailgate. So we're going to have to do that manually. You can see that there's a camera right there. It's non-locking, so hopefully none of the bums try to steal your tailgate too. I'm sure you can get a tailgate lock if you're concerned with that. And then back here, you have a 5-foot or a 60-inch length bed, about 4 feet or 48 inches between the wheel wells, a little bit wider if you count between the actual bed panels, which on this one, they're not bed lined. And then just like the regular Ranger, it's about 21 inches tall. So your max cargo capacity before you start to fill and spill out of the vehicle, it's 43 cubic feet of room that you can hide stuff in back here. Like if you have a rollout or some sort of sliding or folding tonneau cover, you can fit 43 cubic feet back here. And then it's pretty easy to measure stuff right there. You can even measure the width of the tailgate, which is pretty cool. Looks like it goes up to 50 inches on this one. And you have a place where you can clamp something in, which is really neat. This one though, it opens and lowers pretty darn easily. With that said, let's come around to the passenger side. And again, this one is not wide enough to have the 5 amber lights like you get on a full-size Raptor. But holy cow, look at those fenders. They really stick out well. This mid-sized truck, because of the fenders, because of the width, it's actually as wide as a regular F-150. Of course, the interior of the vehicle is smaller, but the width of the fenders are the same, and they are sculpted out very nicely. You also have proximity key features here. You can see you have turn signals, you have the 360-degree camera, you have the vent on the front fender, all of that good stuff. When you open the door panel, it opens up nicely. You have all the same accents. You don't have any red Hobby Lobby stitching, you just get some black stitching. And then Ford Performance on the door sill. Powered seat. Looks like you could even hide a tiny bit of stuff underneath the rails for the seat. My backpack seems to be having a very good time. Held in well with this excessive bolstering on this trim level. I love that Raptor is stamped into the plastic right there. And then you even have some storage above the glove box. And then it's a locking glove box, which is really cool. And it's adequately sized. But with that said, let me come around to the front. I'm going to snap my fingers and I'll show you what the twin-turbo 3-liter V6 engine looks like, which is also found in the Ford Explorer ST, which is a bigger, heavier vehicle than this, and also the Bronco Raptor. So powering this smaller vehicle, this midsize truck, it's probably expected to be more reliable, more efficient, and not have to work so hard. Under the hood is a 405 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 430 pound-feet of torque. Twin turbo, 3-liter V6 EcoBoost. has a lot of complexity. You guys can see that there's a lot of piping and plumbing to get all the air through the turbos and back into the intake manifolds. Honestly, guys, looking around this engine, I can only see one of the turbos down on the passenger side, so comment below where the other turbo is. But overall, this one actually makes pretty substantial power. You can even get a Ford performance tune, and I won't even comment on aftermarket tuning potential, but it seems to be a pretty good vehicle overall. You have reservoirs on the periphery, you have a fuse box, you have the battery, and you have a lot of physical mechanical connections. You can see the valve covers right there, they're black, right? The difference to the aluminum head on each side. So even though there's a lot of complexity, there's actually quite a bit of room to work on this 3-liter example. You can see the serpentine belt hidden down there, but look at how much piping and plumbing you actually have to pull out of the way and disconnect stuff to probably get to those pulleys to take off your serpentine belt in 100,000 miles or whatever. But overall, this is, at least very mechanical, and so for that, I'm happy. But what I'm going to be more happy about is taking on the road and showing you guys how it drives. So with that said, let's drop the hood. Initial driving impressions of the Ford Ranger Raptor. Let's get up to speed. This thing is pretty quick. I wouldn't call it fast, but for what it is, being a mid-sized truck, especially a lifted off-road capable one, it's actually fairly quick, as you'll see on the 0 to 60 soon enough. The brakes, though, they're not as confidence-inspiring as I would like. This does take quite a bit of time and distance to brake, but it gets right back up to speed. And honestly, the way that the exhaust is tuned for this twin-turbo 3-liter EcoBoost engine, it actually sounds pretty good. I don't think it sounds as good as a V8 would sound, a Coyote engine in this thing, but honestly, it does sound pretty good. It's cool that you can shift drive modes on the fly, but honestly, for the purpose of this video, I want to stay in sport mode. I will go down to 2-wheel drive though now. Takes only a second to shift on the fly. Seems to pull about the same though, whether you're in 4-wheel drive auto or 2-wheel drive. I'd imagine the transfer case only kicks in the front wheels when it detects slip or when it detects that it needs to put the power down fully. But anyways, about driving this truck, it drives very similar to a lot of the other Ford Rangers, like the base model I reviewed a couple weeks ago. Visibility is still overall pretty good. I do like that this truck has really big side mirrors with blind spot monitoring, but even compared to something like the Chevy Colorado that has minuscule, embarrassingly small mirrors, this truck has really good visibility. And even if you just look over your shoulder, good visibility there too. And because the cabin is not super long, you can look right down the center. I often talk about in my videos about how you need some passing power to get around farm equipment and tractors and stuff like that. Well, that is exactly what I am talking about right there. We had to pull over for just a second. But this engine sounds fantastic for being a V6, for being twin-turboed, and not being huge displacement. These seats are comfortable, a lot more bolstering than the other Ford Rangers. I love that Raptor is stamped into the back. The speakers sound decent. Honestly, everything in here seems to work really nicely. And overall, I'm having a lot of fun driving this vehicle. But we're gonna get to the private road, do a 0 to 60, and then we'll wrap this video up. 0 to 60 in the 2025 Ford Ranger Raptor. Keep in mind, density altitude's 5,200 feet, so we are literally a mile above sea level. So even though this is twin turboed, it still could be down on power 5 to 8%. And then I have it in 4 auto. I'm gonna do a brake rev. Sport mode is on, traction control is off. Let's see what this thing can do. That was a strong pulling first gear and pretty quick shifts from the 10-speed. True 0 to 60 came in at 6.12 seconds, or probably a high 5 if you discredit rollout. My final thoughts of the 2025 Ford Ranger Raptor is I honestly think that this is a fantastic midsize truck. It's about $10,000 cheaper than the ZR2 Bison that I drove a while ago, and it has more power. It also maybe doesn't have as big of a tire, but honestly, you don't need a bigger tire. You don't need more than 10.7 inches of ground clearance, especially when most people who buy a $60,000 truck aren't immediately taking it off-road and beating the crap out of it. They're daily driving it. They want to keep it nice. They want to keep it looking good, but they like to know in the back of their mind that they can do basically anything that they want. If they had to Baja through the desert, sure, they could do that. If they just need to cruise down to the mall or to the grocery store or to work, they can also do that. That's what I would use this truck for, so I don't personally have a need for it. But do I want it? Heck yeah, I do. I've driven a lot of mid-sized trucks. I used to own a couple Toyota Tacomas, and this feels like such a substantial product. It isn't cheap. 60 grand is very expensive, but also this feels like a $60,000 vehicle. It feels like a Shelby Mustang, like a ZL1 Camaro. It has Alcantara inside, it has the nice stitching, it has the nice seats, it has the nice engine under the hood, good suspension, good wheels and tires. It has all the features that you would want. Sure, I do wish it was a top safety pick, a 5-star crash test rated vehicle, but also I have to be realistic. None of the vehicles in this class are like that. And compared to a lot of them, this one does have pretty good safety features, pretty good speaker system and interior creature comforts. And honestly, I like it a lot, and I wish I didn't have to give it back now. But anyways, guys, I want to know your thoughts and opinions. Would you buy one of these? What do you think it's worth? Have you owned one? Are you planning to buy one? Tell me all that stuff and more. Include your social security number and your mother's maiden name and whatever other fun information that you want to include down below. Anyways, guys, I wish you the best. I thank you so much for watching my video. And if you got anything out of this video today, please consider liking it, comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already. And with that said, I wish you the best. I hope to see you again. Until next time, see ya.